Today I'm going to take you through a mock job interview with the 10 most common questions asked in job interviews around the world. Hi, how are you? I'm Romulo Bucheres. This is the Job Room channel. I conducted a survey with 150 employment agencies from different parts of the world, asking recruiters what they ask most often in interviews. And here I have the 10 most frequently asked questions. But I'm already going to give you tips on how to answer them. So grab a pen and paper or open your notes app on your phone. Write everything down because today I'm going to teach you how to ace a job interview in this interview simulation. Let's get started. The most common first question is, tell me a little about yourself, okay? This question shows up in 90% of job interviews. There are two techniques for you to answer this. First, if this question comes up in a behavioral interview with the Human Resources Department, you should give a 2-minute answer, 2 minutes, where 70% of the time you talk about yourself as a person and 30% of the time you talk about yourself as a professional. I'll give you some examples in a moment. But if this question comes up in a technical interview with a department manager, you should flip the script. You should talk 30% about yourself as a person and 70% about yourself as a professional. Here are two examples for you. Hypothetically, let's say I'm in an interview for a teaching position and HR asks me this question. I could say, "Hi, how are you? My name is Romulo Gutierrez. I'm married and I have 2 daughters. I really enjoy life. I love the ocean. I like water sports. I'm known for being a calm person. I love staying at home watching a good TV series. So that's me as a person." And from there, professionally, I've been working as a teacher for 10 years. I've also worked with activities. Try to relate activities that are listed in the job description, like teaching technology in labs and also assembling and disassembling cell phones and computers, because that's what the job is asking for. And I was really happy to be invited for this interview. Now, if this question is asked by the department manager, you switch it up. Talk less about yourself as a person. For example, "Hi, I'm Romulo Gutierrez. I have 2 daughters, I'm married, I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm currently looking for a position as a teacher. In my career, and then I talk for about a minute and a half, for example, a minute and 30 seconds about my journey as a teacher." That's how you answer the "tell me about yourself" question. Shall we move on to the second question? Let's go. Why did you choose to work in this professional field? This question is very often asked by the Human Resources Department, okay? And they want to see if you have a calling, if you have a passion for your profession. Hypothetically, now I'm a pilot, an airplane pilot. Why did you choose to work in this profession? So, what do I recommend? Show a little bit of how your love for the profession started. Show why you work in this profession. Show why you love this profession. So I could say, look, my choice to become an aircraft pilot started when I was 15 years old, when I was still in high school and had my first contact through YouTube videos. I started doing some flight simulations, even in video games, and realized how much I would adapt and how much I would like to be an aircraft pilot. From there, this passion only grew. I looked for courses, study guides, languages, training, and I graduated as an aircraft pilot in 2021. From then on, I worked at airlines. So show how much you like the profession and go back a bit to your story, to where you fell in love with it. This is an example of an acceptable answer. Shall we go to the third one? Third question. Let's go. In this simulation of ours, this question makes a lot of candidates nervous all over the world, which is, tell me your strengths and how they would benefit our business. So when talking about strengths, always bring up strengths that are closely related to the position you're applying for. There's no point in going to a job interview without thoroughly reading the job description. What do I usually do? What do I recommend? Take the job posting on your phone, open in your notes app, pick 3 technical keywords from the job description that you think are most important, highlight those words, and during the interview, answer or have responses that relate to those words. For example, if I'm going to be a financial manager and the job description says I need to be proficient in Power BI, have contact with banking institutions, and understand investment policies, for instance, it's important that I repeat these terms and explain what I know about them throughout the interview. And when it comes to the question about strengths, I'm going to relate them to the requirements of the job. So tell me your strengths and how they would benefit our business. I could say, look, there are two strengths I have that are really strong. The first is that I'm an expert in the field of investments. I've been working with this for 10 years, and I can definitely help the company with that. It's written right here in the job description, you see? So I connect real positive points with the job position. This is the ideal response model. Now, let's move on to the fifth question. By the way, be careful now from the fifth, sixth question onward, because the rejection rates, especially for the ninth and 10th questions, are high and eliminate a lot of candidates. Before I continue, if you want to practice, simulate a job interview where you'll get performance feedback, whether you did well or not, and where you can improve. Just reach out on WhatsApp. The number is right here on the screen, okay? That's international code 5511, phone number 97706 5417. Or you can click the link that's in the first pinned comment or in the video description. The prices for these services are low. For subscribers to the Job Room channel, there are new videos here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. So I ask you to subscribe and like so that my project can keep teaching people from all over the world how to perform well in job interviews. Now, let's go to the fifth question. Why did you leave your last job? Why did you leave your last job? Let's go. Some important tips. First of all, you have to be honest, but you also don't need to tell absolutely everything that happened. For example, if the reason I left my last job was because I had serious professional issues with my boss, I can soften that. I worked there for a year and 6 months, so I can say, look, I worked there as a client relationship manager for a year and a half. Say what you learned. I learned a lot of things like, for example, the SAP software, which I wasn't familiar with in the client module, and I was able to develop those skills there. Now, let's suppose that SAP software is listed in the job description. Check out how great this answer is. But after that year and 6 months, I realized it was time to look for a new professional chapter. So I had a friendly conversation with my management and we agreed to end the contract. And now I'm looking for a new opportunity. For example, that wasn't even the real reason. The real reason was that my boss was, well, completely crazy. He would, give me procedures to follow. I'd do exactly that. And then he'd complain afterwards. And that's why I left, but I don't go into those details. So when you're asked about this, show what you learned, what you contributed to that company, and always say that your reason for leaving was a mutual decision. That's the best answer you can give, okay? Now, let's move on to the seventh question in our job interview simulation. How do you work under pressure? So here, I'm going to give you a tip on what not to do first, and then a tip on what to do. Avoid theoretical answers. Like, oh, I work really well under pressure. I have a huge ability for it. I can handle a lot of things easily. Give an example. Don't just give theoretical answers when the question itself is asking you to show your real work experience. So, use the STAR method where you describe the situation, the task, the action, and the result you achieved. So they could ask me how I work under pressure, and I could give an answer. For example, let's say I'm a logistics manager now, and I could say, look, I usually work well under pressure. One situation that happened was when I needed to send 30 trucks to the port of Tokyo, and those 30 trucks were still in the process of being loaded, which would have caused major delays for the deliveries and losses for the companies. I described the situation. My task was to bring in new employees to help with loading the trucks, and I took action based on that. I got in touch with the management at the port of Tokyo, asking them for a little more time for that shipment to arrive. I managed to get an extra 2 hours, and as a result, with a task force of more workers loading the trucks and the deadline I negotiated with the port, we were able to make the delivery on time and without any losses. That's how I worked under pressure. So share a real situation, something with facts, numbers, reality, that relates to the job description. That's how you should answer, okay? Let's move on to the 8th question now. By the way, be careful with the 8th, 9th, and 10th questions. If you've made it to 10 minutes and 7 seconds of the video, leave a comment and write, I'm here, so I know you made it. Every time you comment, YouTube will send this video to more people around the world, and you help this project grow. And don't forget to leave your like. Eighth question, give me an example of a conflict you had to resolve at work. An example of a conflict you had to resolve at work. I'd say this is just a different way of asking. How do you handle conflicts? How do you resolve conflicts? How do you solve problems at work? All right. Yeah, and here the question itself is already telling you you need to give an example. Once again, you should use the STAR method, where you describe the situation, state the task, the action, and the result, okay? So, I'm going to give you a fictional example here. Hypothetically, let's say I work as an artificial intelligence developer now. And then I get this question. I say, look, a conflict I had was I delivered an artificial intelligence module to a client and they rejected the delivery. That was the situation. The task at first was that I scheduled a video call to listen to him and identified all the points he mentioned that he didn't like about the customer service AI model I had created. In response to that, I took action. I sat down with my supervisor, showed them the client's points of dissatisfaction, and explained what I could fix myself and what I would need support with. And through a joint effort between myself, my manager, and other team members that my manager assigned to the project, we delivered the final result of a new artificial intelligence solution. This client was so pleased that they praised us publicly and referred several more clients to us. This is an example of a conflict, of someone being dissatisfied with my work, and how I was able to resolve it in this way. So don't just stay in the realm of theory, okay? I even like to joke. When you're going to an interview, your best friend is called, for example. No, don't talk too much about theories. Bring real examples of what you've done, what you've delivered, how you've improved. This will give your interview much more impact. Now, let's move on to the ninth question, which is, why should we hire you? All right. This question is usually asked at the end of the interview, and I would say it's a sign that your interview is going well. It's a sign of approval. When the person interviewing you asks, why should I hire you? It's usually because your answers, your experiences, and what you've said have made a good impression. Now, you can't just give any answer. My tip is to use the 3 whys technique, okay? What is the 3 whys technique? You're going to give 2 technical reasons why you should be hired and 1 behavioral reason why you should be hired. For example, let's say I'm interviewing for a job as a quality inspector at a fishery, a quality inspector in the fishing industry. Then they ask me, why should we hire you? 2 more technical answers and 1 behavioral. You should hire me for 3 reasons. First, I worked in a fishing industry in Norway for 5 years, which focused a lot on cod fishing. And I know this type of fish very well, so that's one of the reasons why you should hire me. That's a technical reason. A second reason is that I'm also a specialist in fish cutting and cooling processes. And I noticed that the job opening requires someone to work in both of these areas, and I have a lot of experience with that. That's the second technical reason. Third, a behavioral reason. I'm a very careful and diligent person in all my work, always following safety regulations. And those are the 3 reasons why you should hire me. But I read in the job posting that one of their concerns is also the safety of the professional, workplace safety. So I answered this question well. And the 10th question, which is usually asked by the recruiter or the department manager. Do you have any final questions? Is there anything you'd like to ask us? And the worst thing you can do is say you have nothing to ask. You need to have at least 1 or 2 final questions, so I'll give you 2 suggestions, okay? Here's the first suggestion that I think is interesting. I would finish like this. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the interview, and I have a question. The question is, what will be the main challenges and lessons I will need to develop in the first 90 days on the job? This shows that you have a learning mindset, that you want to deliver results. That's a good final question. A question that I love and always recommend to anyone who does interview simulations with me is the following. I thank you very much for the interview. I studied the position with great interest and noticed that you work a lot with codfish products. So my question is there any other kind of manual or something I could study so that if I'm hired, I can be better prepared for this position? So, what's the technique? You thank them, Mention something you studied about the company and the position, and ask if there's anything else you could study to be even better prepared. Now, a tricky question that I didn't mention in this interview simulation is, tell me about your weaknesses. I'll give you some sample answers in this video right here. Go check it out, it'll really help you. Great preparation. Take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.